there were 300 to 400 people out on Horns Island. You mean to tell me nobody saw anything?
Any parent that would be in this situation, you would do anything to find out what happened to your child.
Joining us now, Nancy Grace, former special prosecutor and host of Crime Stories with Nancy Grace. You know, Nancy, Attorney Ben Crump there has a point. You mean no one saw anything? Where do you see this investigation, where things stand?
I've got a lot of problems with the investigation so far, but remember, we are seeing through a mirror darkly. We don't know all the evidence. There's been one state's autopsy, and that has not been released. The family sent the body of Nolan Wells for a second independent autopsy, and that autopsy says undetermined. This is what I do know, Griff. I know on the back of his head, the occipital bone back here, there is deep red subcutaneous tissue. It's not anywhere else. It is not pooling of the blood once he's died. The blood pools at the lowest point. It's not that, because it's only there. I'm curious, does that suggest a blow to the head? There are many accidental possibilities. When you look at the video out there are tons of boats. They're close together. Did he drink and drown in between one of those boats and nobody noticed? I don't know that. However, that deep reddening on the occipital bone is very disturbing to me. Also, you think, oh, he drowned, but we don't have the lungs. When the second autopsy got the body, the lungs and the throat were missing. Now, I understand, Griff, why they took the lungs to determine if he had drowned, but why was the neck missing? What about the interior of the throat sparked the initial medical examiner's concern? Was there some bruising on the neck? I don't know. So right now, it could go in so many different directions. But let me tell you this. The call that the friends made when they were returning without Nolan, they say he wanted to stay and be with a friend girl he just met. She, Katie, says, no, he left with his friends. I got a problem right there. That's a conflict in the testimony. But when you listen to the call the other friends made, they called Seatow, Seatow, and said, we're sinking. In this newly released sound, you can make out somebody saying, wake the F up. What does that mean? I'm not resting till I find out if that's real. Has it been doctored? And if it is real, who are they talking to?
So many questions that you raise, Nancy, and as someone who's investigated these things, you know which questions to ask. I want to take you back, though, because that marking on the back of his head is not insignificant, as you rightfully point out, because also the size of it, right? It's like a 12 by 8. I mean, it's not a small clue in this. Expand on that a bit, if you will.
Yes, that's perfect. Right there is showing exactly where the reddened tissue is, and is subcutaneous under the skin. Now, as we all know, in an autopsy, the skin is pulled away from the body to look at the tissue underneath the skin. That's where the second medical examiner, doctor, found it. Many people are arguing it was a blow to the back of the head. Many people argue he fell, hit his head on the boat, and went over. Well, if that happened, didn't anybody see him? So it's going to boil down to witness testimony and what that neck truly reveals. Again, why did the first medical examiner keep that part of the body? It was not sent to the second autopsy. That raises my antenna. There's a lot of hate going on around this case. It's very hard to understand. Again, it could be accidental. It may not be. And we can't stop the investigation until we know. This young man was 18. You know how old my twins are? 18. And I would be lying on the front of the courthouse steps screaming for an answer till I got one.
A mysterious death on a holiday weekend, a body recovered from the Gulf, and a timeline that leaves more questions than answers. Tonight, we aren't chasing internet theories or repeating comment section rumors. We are laying out the hard, undeniable contradictions sitting right at the center of the Nolan Wells investigation. Let's start with a timeline that nobody in an official capacity has cleanly explained. Nolan Wells went to Horn Island on July 4th with a group of friends spread across 3 boats. At 4:31 p.m. that afternoon, those boats left the island, reporting mechanical failure and taking on water. Nolan's phone made it back to the mainland on one of those boats. Nolan did not. His body was recovered 2 days later, on July 6th, along the shoreline. But look at the clock on the official investigation. The state conducted its autopsy on July 7th. Yet, the final, completed report, the document that determines grand jury charges and everything that happens next, was only finalized on July 31st. Officials confirmed that timeline directly to NBC News. 3 weeks. That is how long it took the state to move from a physical exam to a finished file. And even now, with that report completed and headed to a Mississippi grand jury, the throat and neck tissue retained during that initial state exam still hasn't been released to the independent pathologist hired by Nolan's family. Ask yourself the obvious question: if the state's forensic work is completely done, what is anyone still protecting by holding onto that tissue? This creates a massive contradiction. One version of events, the state's sealed report, is about to walk into a closed grand jury room. The other version, the independent autopsy paid for by a grieving family, had to be built by Dr. Mitchell without ever seeing that state report or that retained neck tissue. His findings? Undetermined. Because the critical evidence required to check for strangulation is sitting locked in a state file. Mississippi's district attorney says the process stays sealed to protect witnesses and maintain professional conduct rules. That is a legitimate legal reason. But it is also true that standard practice and a family's right to answers can both exist at the same time, and neither cancels out the other. Drop your honest take below. Is a sealed grand jury the right move for justice, or should the family's independent expert already have access to the evidence? We are reading your responses. We need to address a viral piece of misinformation bluntly, because it has warped this entire case for weeks. There is a massive online claim that Cito is a fake company invented to cover up a crime. It isn't. Cito is a legitimate, nationwide, private boat towing membership service. Think of it exactly as roadside assistance for the water. It's not 911, and it's not the Coast Guard. A huge portion of the online outrage asking, why didn't they call for real help, is built on people simply not understanding that basic distinction. The real controversy isn't whether the company is real. It's whether the audio circulating from that distress call is authentic. Digital forensics expert Robert Fried directly examined the enhanced version of the Cito call. The version pushed by TMZ, the one featuring the highly disputed phrase, "Wake the F up," asterisk that people have argued about for weeks. Fried's technical findings are damning. That viral enhanced version runs a full 20 seconds longer than the original recording and carries a completely different digital fingerprint. Think about that. 20 seconds of extra material in a file presented to the public as an authentic enhancement. Furthermore, the original recording released by the state had account numbers and phone numbers redacted for standard privacy reasons. But stripping that data means the internal metadata is gone, making it nearly impossible for any neutral third party to verify a clean chain of custody on any version built from it afterward. Through all of this, commentators like Brandon Tatum have pointed out that the authentic, unedited Cito recording released by the state doesn't contain anything nefarious. The viral, explosive versions are the ones that are demonstrably altered from the source file. That doesn't mean nothing happened on Horn Island that day. It means the loudest piece of evidence driving the online conversation doesn't hold up to actual scientific scrutiny. Does it change how you view this case knowing that the most viral version of the audio doesn't even match the original file? Let us know in the comments. Inside that disputed audio, one name keeps surfacing in amateur transcripts and comment sections. Bart Edmonston Jr., his name is audible on the undisputed recording. That much is a fact. But what people have built on top of that fact is entirely unverified. The online backlash got so intense that his family reported being doxxed and threatened over what they call outright fabrications. It got loud enough that his attorney, Russell Latino, went on national television opposite Chris Cuomo specifically to defend a client who hasn't been charged with any crime. According to Latino, his client's only role that day was helping drain water off a distressed boat. He stated that roughly 20 people were spread across those vessels, and every one of them saw exactly what Bart did and didn't do. Then, Latino dropped a claim that hasn't received nearly enough attention. He stated there are at least 2 credible witnesses who saw Nolan alive on Horn Island a full hour and a half after both boats had already departed. Let that sink in. If that claim holds up, the entire foundation of the public timeline is wrong. An hour and a half is a long time on a barrier island. It is long enough for almost anything to have happened completely independent of the people who left by boat. Right now, we have to be completely honest about where this claim stands. It is a defense attorney's statement made on a televised interview. That doesn't make it false. Attorneys cite real witnesses as a standard part of a defense, but it also doesn't make it independently confirmed. No neutral party has publicly named these witnesses or interviewed them on the record. But if those 2 witnesses are real, it completely changes the geometry of this case. Now look at the contrast in how fast different parts of the story are moving. While Nolan's death investigation has dragged on with no charges, a completely separate arrest connected to the case happened almost instantly. A man named Joseph Alfredo Vasquez Dumar is currently in federal custody, charged with sending horrific death threats to Judge Ashley Cole, the stepmother of Warren Hudson, one of the friends on the boat. The threats specifically targeted her children, echoing details of strangulation. The FBI's Safe Streets Task Force traced the anonymous accounts back to Dumar within days using email IP addresses, a birth date, and a physical address. Dumar, who has a prior 2018 conviction for the attempted kidnapping of a minor, now faces up to 5 years in federal prison. People are asking the obvious question, why hasn't Nolan's case moved this fast? The comparison is tempting, but it isn't fair. A federal threats case runs entirely on digital footprints. IP addresses and server logs don't decompose, they don't drift with the tide, and they don't depend on conflicting eyewitness accounts. Nolan's case is the exact opposite. A body recovered after days in open water, a scene with no fixed cameras, and hundreds of holiday partygoers scattered across a barrier island weeks ago. The logistics explain the speed gap, but they don't erase the emotional weight of it. An 18-year-old is dead with no answers, while a digital threat gets resolved in days. To add a significant detail to the dynamic of this community, Judge Cole's husband has personally posted a $50,000 reward for information, leading to an arrest and conviction in Nolan's death. That is a financial commitment to finding the truth coming directly from a family member of someone in that friend group. Nolan's mother, Christine Wells, has taken a major legal step. Her attorneys have filed official subpoenas in Jackson County Chancery Court targeting 5 distinct platforms: Meta, Snapchat, TikTok, WhatsApp, and Life 360. This isn't a casual request. It's a court-backed demand for usernames, IP addresses, communication histories, and location logs. But these 5 platforms are not equally powerful, and treating them as one single tool misses the technical reality of how data works. Let's break down what these subpoenas can actually accomplish. Snapchat. This is potentially the most critical subpoena. Content that vanishes from a user's screen doesn't immediately vanish from Snapchat's corporate servers. If Nolan's account was systematically stripped of data from that day, as his family suspects, Snapchat's server backups are one of the only tools that can verify what was deleted and when. Meta and TikTok. These sit in the middle. Messages, stories, and activity logs live on internal servers and are technically recoverable, though how quickly and completely these corporations comply with a local court order varies wildly. WhatsApp. This is where the legal strategy hits a hard technical wall. WhatsApp utilizes end-to-end encryption. That is a foundational technical architecture, not a policy choice they can waive for a high-profile case. The company literally does not possess the keys to decrypt and read message content on their servers. A subpoena here is functionally powerless to retrieve past text conversations. Life 360. This hits differently. This is the location tracking service Nolan's mother was actively watching the night she tried to find her son. A subpoena to Life 360 isn't searching for text messages, it is pulling raw GPS coordinates. That data will either completely validate or completely destroy the timeline provided by the friend group. We must also understand the legal timeline. Snapchat publicly states it targets a 2 to 3 week turnaround for legal requests, but real-world cases often drag on much longer. Meta has no clean public benchmark. If this case goes quiet for the next month, this digital waiting period is exactly why. And let's correct one headline circulating online. There is currently no verified evidence that these tech platforms are actively fighting or blocking the family subpoenas. Media reports simply state that the companies haven't responded to press requests for comment, which is a normal corporate legal stance, not active resistance. Ultimately, a subpoena is just a records request sent to a server. It is not a physical forensic extraction of a device. When a file is deleted from a phone, the data remains marked as available space until new activity overwrites it. To find the true digital footprints, timestamps, and deleted media logs, a physical forensic acquisition of the devices themselves is still desperately needed. Underneath the legal filings, the forensic audio reports, and the oceanic engineering data, there are two parents who haven't been able to see or hold their son in a month. At a recent press event, Christine Wells spoke not with a predetermined verdict, but with the raw grief of a mother terrified that the world will forget her son was a real person. She described Nolan as a natural cheerleader, someone who made everyone feel welcome. Instead of receiving universal support while seeking answers, Christine, a nurse practitioner with an unblemished professional record, has seen her workplace targeted by a wave of fabricated online reviews attacking her character. That isn't public debate. That is an organized effort to destroy a grieving mother's livelihood simply because she is asking how her son died. To prevent this investigation from dissolving into pure internet noise, we must do what almost no one else covering this case is doing. We need to rigidly sort every piece of information into 4 distinct boxes. If a detail haven't earned its place in one of these boxes, it isn't knowledge, it's just noise. The breakdown matrix. What is confirmed? Nolan went to the island on 3 boats. The boats left at 4:31 p.m. due to mechanical distress. His phone stayed on the boat. He remained behind. His body was found July 6th. The state autopsy occurred July 7th and wrapped July 31st with retained tissue. Dr. Mitchell's independent exam returned undetermined. Joseph Dumar was arrested for digital federal threats. Subpoenas have been legally filed against 5 tech companies. What is claimed? That Nolan chose to stay behind completely voluntarily to talk to a woman. That leaving phones on boats was normal behavior for this group. That 2 witnesses saw Nolan alive 90 minutes after departure. That the friend group cooperated fully and immediately with the police from day one. These are claims attached to real names, but they lack independent, neutral verification. What is disputed? The viral audio file, which an expert found to be altered and elongated by 20 seconds. The claim that Nolan was found fully clothed, which the Cajun Navy heavily disputed as a media misunderstanding. The exact nature of Nolan's relationship with Tristan Shepard. What remains unknown? How Nolan entered the water. Whether he was conscious or unconscious. What the state's completed autopsy report actually concludes. What the retained neck tissue physically reveals. Whether the oceanic tide math holds up under technical review. The entire danger of modern true crime coverage is that these 4 categories get completely flattened online. Unknown elements get repeated so many times they start sounding confirmed to anyone reading a headline. The completion of the state report is confirmed. What that report says is completely unknown. Nolan Wells deserves an investigation built on clear facts, not category errors. His family deserves answers derived from honest science and due process, not social media repetition masquerading as evidence. Go to the comments right now. Take one specific claim you have seen floating around this case, and tell us honestly which of these 4 boxes it has actually earned. We will keep tracking the data, sorting the facts, and waiting for the forensic evidence to speak. Thank you for watching.